Hello, my name is Ron Gilson and I would like to present to you the product overview of Intraday Trade Manager. This product was developed by myself working with Pat. We were both traders within InvestiQuant, and we found a lot of value in this tool and wanted to share it with others. So the goal of this video is to review the product, show you how it works, try to answer as many questions as possible. Please use the attached or the manual that will be available on the website for any details, and I will review that and try to cover as much of the information in the manual as possible during this video. We will also have an additional video that shows you how to get started with installing a TradeStation app and configuring your workspace, which will go into more detail, but I'll go ahead and get started by selecting the Trading Apps button, picking the appropriate app. This could get listed at the bottom depending on how many apps you have available, so you may have to scroll here. So once you select the icon, a window will appear. You'll notice the loading dialog can take up to 20 to 30 seconds to become ready. Once it's ready, you're welcome to start using the app. Before that, it's not synchronized with the TradeStation data stream, so you won't be connected and have accurate price ATR calculations. So please pause and wait for 20 to 30 seconds. Just want to point out the disclaimer here. It's very important that you pay attention to what you're doing because this tool has some level of automation and simplification. You could perform some type of action that would increase your position size by reducing your stop, things like that, the stop delta between your entry and stop. So please make sure that you consider and verify position size and things like that before you place a trade because it can't think for you. The goal of this tool was to make the execution of InvestiQuant setups easy, fast, and mistake-free. So please try to get familiar with it. And once you get comfortable, I think you'll find incredible value in using it and see that it makes executing multiple setups for multiple markets much easier, much more efficient, and most of all, error-free. Again, here's my contact info, and Pat, you can reach us using this email address. If you have any issues, please include a screenshot. Oh, excuse me, the mic fell over. If you have any issues, please include a screenshot, or you can also include a debug log, which I can show you where that is at a later time. This is the table of contents. It goes through every input and explains in detail what it's for. We will cover that after this. We also have a lot of marked up screenshots that point to different fields to explain it for additional reference. Hopefully this overview will cover most of that. So at this point I'm going to get started on reviewing the inputs. Again, I'm going to follow the document as well as I can, so hopefully this will be something you can reference if you ever have any questions. The instrument field should be the tradable symbol that is inputted into the system. For futures, it would have this format. For stocks, you could just put in the trading symbol. The instrument type will be specific to whether you're trading futures or stocks and ETFs. For futures, always put a 0 here. For stocks and ETFs, please enter a 2. For instrument rounding, you will want to make sure that you have an accurate number of decimal places depending on the type of market that you're trading. Some of the commodities have 3 or 4 significant digits, so please think through that when you're setting it up. We have a table at the end of the document, or in the middle, I'll get to that, that covers all of the commodity setups and all of these inputs that are suggested. So you can reference that if you have any questions, so don't freak out at this point. The instrument tick size should be what is how the market trades, and what the tick is that is used to calculate the entry point for the range trades. The dollars per point will be used to calculate percent risk, so please make sure that is appropriate. Instrument ATR can be a little confusing, but I'll try to explain it so it makes sense. If you are trading a future market, then if you put the word future here, it will use a synthesized daily bar from the 5-minute bars during the instrument open time and instrument close time to calculate the ATR. You should find that this matches the InvestiQuant ATR calculation exactly. However, if you want to trade using Master the Gap, which uses a cash index value, or if you're trading a stock, please put in the symbol $INX for ES, or the stock symbol F for Ford, for example, and it will calculate the daily bar using, or the ATR using the daily bar. If you want to ignore short days, put a true here. Otherwise, you can use the word false to calculate ATR based off of short days. So this is related to ATR. The instrument open I explained. This is used to calculate the high, low, open, close. So please make sure these are accurate, or you will get inappropriate values when trying to recognize the gap setup. Range 15-minute will be used to calculate the range high and range low for the 15-minute, so please also make sure those are accurate. Here is the 60-minute high and low that's using this number. Next, I'll talk about some of the gap inputs. These are signified by this header here, so all of these settings between here and here are related to gaps. If you enter fixed position size, it will override the following two numbers, and this will be in an integer value, so it's the number of contracts that you want to trade. If you use 0, it is ignored and then relies on gap risk percentage. So if you specify a percentage here, it will calculate your account equity, which I will describe at the end of the inputs, and it will multiply that by this number, and then use the dollars per point and the stop size to calculate the number of contracts. So this equation here should give you a good example. If you have any questions, you can experiment with that, and it does suggest the size before you make a trade, so you can verify it and get comfortable with that if you choose to use percent risk. If you're trading with a small account or very low risk, you could have situations where the calculation will, it always takes the floor of the contract size. So if you had 0.99, it would not trade. So if you wanted to guard against that, you could put a 1 here, which would make it such that if the trade setup is valid, which we'll go through, it would place at least one contract on, regardless if your percent risk was less than one contract, if that makes sense. It will not cause it to round up on situations where it's between 1 and 2, so don't worry about that. The gap entry time is something that you can use to define when you want to enter the trade. The way this tool is set up is you stage orders by selecting this, filling out the form. You press the stage order button, so you can stage multiple orders for a given setup in this window right here. And then when this execution time occurs, it will actually submit those orders if they are valid given where the market is trading at that time. We'll go through a couple examples and it'll get more familiar, but this is how you adjust that time. This determines the percent of the position size that you want to dedicate to the target, T1 target. So if you leave this at 1, 100% of your position size will be going for the gap fill close. If you then change that to some number between 0 and 1, you will get position size that will be dedicated to the tier 2 target, or target 2, which is 15% beyond gap fill. And that is spelled out here in a lot more detail, so if you have any questions, please reference the manual. Prefer market price over limit. What that does is it changes the entry field to market or limit by default. You can determine whether you want to enter with a market order or a limit order by changing this value. It can be changed on the fly, but I would recommend setting this to your preference so that it makes things simple for you. If you do choose to use a limit order, and that would be done by specifying false here, then closing an unfilled gap entry after X number of minutes is then a valid input that you would need to fill out. If you leave it at 0, it'll never get closed. If you leave it at 5, your order will stay active for 5 minutes by adding 5 minutes to this time, and then you will see that your unfilled orders would get closed. Minimum gap size is calculated in 2 ways. One, you can specify a fixed number here, or you can use the value 0, which will then use the proprietary InvestiQuant method for calculating minimum gap size. So if you prefer to use their setups and you want to follow their house rules, then I would recommend using a 0. The last few are hopefully pretty obvious. These are your max gap ATR, so this is going to be a suggested number that goes into this field. It will then calculate the max points so that you can have an idea as to whether you would take a trade or not given this number. So you can adjust this on the fly, but it is also something that you can change in the input so that you don't have to continue to update it regularly. Min gap stop is the minimum gap stop, which 5 is the standard for the ES. Max gap stop is 12. These can be changed if you'd like to do something other than that. And then the percent ATR gap stop is used to calculate the stop size within these 2 points based on the percent of the ATR, 30% in this case. Alright, now I'm going to step into the range input settings. You can see that these model very closely to what we just talked about with gap. So for fixed position size 15 range, you could use 0, which is going to use the percent risk. Same for the 60 range. Main contract size affects both the 15 and 60. Same rules as before with the gap. Prefer stop limit over stop market. This is going to affect this order type option. So if you prefer to use stop limits to enter breakouts for range trades, you can change this to true. If you want to use a stop market, leave it false. Min, target, range, stop, all these are essentially the same as the gap for the range. The last one that I think I need to discuss to make things clear is the set target stop based on fill price. So if you leave it set to true, then it will use dynamic targets and stop settings. So if you have any slippage, then the price will be reflected based on the fill price. The stop and target price will be reflected based on the fill price. However, if you set this to false, then it will use the historical target and stop settings, much like what you see printed in the gap guides, range guides, so you'll have no slippage. So please account for that. And that only affects range trades, gap trades. It's going to be based off of your fill price. The stop will, and the target doesn't move. Okay, the last two things are not related to a specific setup, so they are in a general setting here. Unfilled, close unfilled orders at this time, unfilled entry orders at this time is a setting that you can use for things like low fade or high fades that, or sorry, range trades that haven't triggered. If you set this to 1530, then at 330 you will have the unfilled order canceled if the order has not been filled. The close position time is used to close out a position when a specific time is encountered. The good news is this order will reside on the TradeStation server, so if you have a power outage, a network outage, you should be assured that your target, stop, and close position time order will be sitting on the server. If you don't want to have the position close at a specific time, then you should use 0 in this case, in which it will be ignored. The lot size is an important topic that I want to cover and try to explain some of the nuances of how the previous setting and the benefits from that are affected or affect the way stops and targets are managed. So if you're trading one contract, this is a very easy decision. You leave it at lot size of 1 or even 10 for that matter, and it's still only going to trade one contract. So it's not going to increase the number of contracts you would trade. It just limits how many contracts are sent as a group. So if you want to limit the risk of having your target or stop canceled, it's really target or stop canceled because your target is partially filled. So for an example, if you had 10 contracts and they were all grouped in one lot, so this lot size was 10, and the target was hit and 5 contracts were filled, the way the OCO group works with this app, all your stop orders would be removed because the TradeStation server will cancel both the close position time order as well as the stop order when any fill occurs for the target. So regardless of whether all 10 were filled, your stops would be gone off of the server and would not exist anymore, as well as your close position time. So we think that is a risk that should be avoided, and to do that, the recommendation that we have is to use the value 1 for lot size. If you do that, the risk will be mitigated with having a target partially filled and a stop order canceled. So that's the recommendation. I would highly recommend you do that. If you have any questions, please reach out to us. I know it can be a slightly confusing topic. This is pretty detailed, so please read that if it's still unclear. All right, for the account settings, this is hopefully going to be pretty easy to understand. What I would recommend doing is, if you have one account and you don't have a long or short account that's separated, then this is quite simple. You just type in the same account number for both the long and short. So I'm going to go ahead and place that in for myself because I want to show you how the account equity is calculated, and I want to be able to execute some trades. If you have a long and short account, you can type in the appropriate account for each field, and your account equity will be aggregated so that the percent risk calculations will still be honored based on the aggregate. So if that's still unclear after I go through the example, please let me know. And the last setting is print extra debug to log. Essentially what that will do is output a lot more detail. If you're having an issue, we may ask that you set that to true, and this will generate a lot more data for us to be able to try to diagnose the problem remotely. Since I'm there, I will show you the C drive, and the root is where the files will get created to track all of the messages that are logged in the system, or any debug logs that get added. So if you have a support issue, we may ask that you supply this file so that we can review it and try to understand what is not working or what did not work properly. So just wanted to show you where this file is located so that you could grab it if necessary. It is broken up by trade symbol, so this file, you will get a file for every symbol that you trade. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and hit OK now that I have all of these inputs set up as I wish, and you will see that the app goes back to loading. Again, please be patient. Once it says ready, you're ready to go. Any field that is editable, you can edit that and it will be honored in real time. However, if you scroll down or can click the Reset App button, it will reload based off of the inputs, which are considered the default settings. So for example, I will change the max gap ATR to 5.5, and if I hit Reset App, it now changes back to what was inputted on the inputs. This is also done every day at the instrument close time, so it will essentially refresh and clear out everything for the next trading day. If you made any customizations, you don't have to worry about forgetting about that the following day. Alright, so to start at the top, the ATR can be overridden if necessary. You could change all these items, but to enter your gap trade, we'll start there. You look at the tree here. It's stacked vertically to try to make it easy to understand. This is the high price that was calculated for the previous day. These prices roll over at the end of the day when the app resets, so you can essentially, as soon as the market closes, you can go ahead and set up your trades for the following day using the InvestiQuant data. So for example, the UH looks really good based on the numbers, so I want to enter a UH trade. So I click the button UH, and you can see that size, target 1, target 2, stop points, and market were selected. I can override any of these values if I choose, and when I hit stage order, that's when the order is now ready and waiting for the time to execute. I may also decide that I want to trade the UHC as well because the setup is strong. You can also notice that this tells you that the market is trading in the UHC zone. So this color will switch around between these 5 here and this zone as well, depending on the price before the market opens. It also tracks after the market opens as well. But if you press the UHC, you'll see that these numbers really don't change, but this selected zone will. So as you can see, we now have UHC. So if I press the stage gap order, you'll now see that 2 orders are sitting and waiting for execution tomorrow. There is no limit to the number of rows that you can insert here. Vertical space is pretty precious within this app, so it was reduced to 4, fitting nicely, but you can enter any number you'd like. If you click UHC, you can see that the selected zone changes, and we could adjust this and say we want to have a 9-point stop for the UHC. So if I hit stage, you'll notice that the target size was reduced, and that is because the stop was increased. So percent risk will take that into account and reduce your size. So there's a lot of value if you're comfortable using a percent risk model, so that you can take all of the logic out of having to compute each setup and your risk based on stops, and if you make alterations to those. Let's say you wanted to try to set up the heat gap as well because it's favorable. You can click this. You will notice that UCO and heat are treated as two separate entities in this app. So if you click UCO, that will only be a UCO that is not a heat gap. If you had the opposite case with DOC, then Cowboy would also only be traded if it's a Cowboy, but if not, it would use DOC. So you can distinguish between those just by entering that. For example, let's say we think about it and decide that the UCO really is not what I wanted to trade. I can select a specific row, click remove, and now it's no longer a staged order, and I don't have to worry about taking that trade. This clear all will remove all staged orders. For example, I want to start over. I'm not comfortable with what's going on. I'm confused. Just hit clear all, and now you have no staged orders and nothing will trigger. Recommendation is please don't leave staged orders there unless they are intentional, because the app doesn't know other than if it's here, it's going to execute. So if you leave orders here, do expect that they will be evaluated for accuracy and then executed. So be cautious unless they're intentionally left here for a reason, or you're in sim mode and you're doing some test. You can change this time to any time you want. We could change this to current time, but if you really want to just do some tests or enter at any time, you can press this red button that should only be pressed if you're wanting to do something outside of the norm. So for example, I'm going to enter a UHC zone gap. I think it's going to be too small, but this will give us an opportunity to see why or how the app responds when that occurs. So I have a UHC zone. It does match this. The gap is 0.5. Market's currently trading at 2060.5. So I'm going to press the manual gap entry button to execute outside of the normal operating time. As you can see, the system is pretty handy and tries to give you useful feedback so that you know what occurred. Here it shows that the minimum gap was too small, so it can't honor the trade, and therefore it discards the order. These are put in reverse chronological, so you'll see the top item always at the top of the list, so you don't have to scroll down unless you want to see more detail. I'm going to give you another example of entering two orders just to show you what will happen during a typical setup. So we have three orders that we may want to enter. They're favorable, so we're going to click the manual gap entry to see what would happen. And in this situation, you can see the UHC was discarded for this account. The UH was discarded for this account. The UCO was discarded for this account. Those could be different account numbers, so they're printed there to give you some information as to what happened. And the UHC was again discarded because the gap was too small. At this point, I'm going to show you how modifying this size affects the staging of the order. So as soon as you hit stage, you now see that only one was entered. Let's say I want to stage some additional orders for extended target. So I can change this number to say, okay, now I'm going to have 1 and 1 because it's 50%. So now you see that order goes in, so it'll be targeting 1 for gap fill, 1 for extended target. If I want to change the max ATR, so let's say I want half my position to be at 40%, and I want half my position to be at 60%. I can do that by changing this value. I can also adjust this to we'll just make it 4, and also adjust this back to 1. Just trying to show the flexibility. You can pretty much edit any of these, but now you can see that the max gap is 0.6. So a lot of flexibility. Just try to get comfortable with it. I think it all makes sense. Alright, so now I'm going to review the range entry form. This information was provided to make it clear what's going on. I think often there's a lot of flexibility and discretion that gets applied, so wanted to make sure it's clear what's going on. You can adjust any of these 5 fields, as well as the size and order before you send it. But based on the order in which you edit these, it can affect how the automated calculation occurs to try to make the process easier. So let me go through a couple examples, and I think it'll be clear. And you can follow this recommended sequence of steps to try to make it as pain-free as possible. So if you want to, if the numbers are supportive and you want to trade the high breakout, you can press this button. You'll notice that immediately the entry price is specified at 1 tick above the high of the 15-minute. The target is immediately calculated based on the target percent of the minimum in this case. The stop is then also calculated based on a 5.75 stop for the current ATR, and the price is updated as well. The order type is specified. You can override this. In most cases you shouldn't. I spoke to an input that could affect the default behavior, so I would recommend setting that and sticking to preference there. If you change to a different input or trade type, for example a fade, this automatically switches to limit, so you don't really need to make changes to that. But if you wanted to override it for a specific situation, you can. There's a reminder of direction. Also there's a reminder of the type of order you're using, since this form is used by both 60-minute and 15-minute. This was a tool to make sure that you are clear what you're sending when you hit send, and the order's tracked and uses this name so that you can identify it in messages and things like that. The orders that are submitted and are able to be canceled will show up here. So we'll do a couple examples and I will describe how that works. For orders that are unfilled, you can select them and press cancel order and exit those at a specific time if you don't want to wait for the input setting in the example we showed earlier, 1530 to occur. So I will go ahead and pick an order that we can do a couple simulated entries for. And the low fade looks good because it won't immediately enter. This will give us a chance to see how the system works. So I will go with a basic one without any modifications, just to give you an example. You can see I'm using percent risk. If I change to the 60-minute and hit low fade, the size is different. So 3 contracts are suggested because of 1% risk. And in this case, 0.5% risk is calculating to 1, and that's because of the flooring that's in place. So if I wanted to adjust the stop, I could. So if I type in 4, you can see that the size is reflected because now I'm using less risk. Total dollar amount is trying to be honored, so it increases the position size to accommodate that. If I want to change my entry price, it will update target price, target points, stop, and stop points. So I will do that example here. We will go ahead and type in 2050. moving it up 1 point for some reason. And you can now see that the target and stop were defaulted back to their original values. This is a safety measure. I would recommend that you always follow the process of select the trade, figure out what your entry is going to be, figure out what your target's going to be, change your stop, verify your size, and then you hit send. So back to sending a real order, hit low fade. I'm going to leave everything at the defaults for now, and I'm going to hit send. In this case, you can see that it popped up confirmation of what's going in. If you don't want to see this, put a checkbox here, and that will guard against that. What this is telling me is I have an entry. I have the cancel based on a time event in case there is neither the target or stop are not hit before this time. There's then the target based off of the fill, and then there's a stop price. So I'm going to hit this box so we don't have to see that before, but I want to describe what to do to get rid of that. So if I hit yes, I want to place the order. You will now see that we get an order. There we go. So my entry is 49. That matches here. Target's 53. That matches. Stop is 43. That matches. Now you'll notice that there is a order here. It's a little confusing for the first time, but what this is the cancel based on time order. If I show you here in Trade Manager, you'll now see that there is an entry order and there's 3 exit orders. Here is the exit at 4 o'clock based on the close position time. Here's my entry, here's my exit. So you'll get accustomed to that, but essentially this close position time order tracks the last price in the matrix. So a little confusing at first, but once you understand why it's there, hopefully that won't be the case. You can see that the order is staged here. If we look, we get an order number. This should match the order number here. The quantity is specified, the time that it was executed is specified, the type of order that it is specified to make it easy for you to look at this cell and figure out what's going on. The state will change once the order is filled, and it changes to filled. If you want to cancel it, you can select it and it will populate this field, and this button will become enabled. Now you can press the cancel order button to close the unfilled order. It tells you here exactly what occurred, so now you know that the order has been removed. And it's reflected here in the Trade Manager order bar. Do another example. This is 3 contracts. Let's adjust the stop to 8 points. You can see that the stop price was automatically updated. Stop size was automatically reduced. Now I can press send order. You can see that the order was placed here and here. You'll notice that I have 2 orders. That's because I have a lot size of 1 defined. So this is an example of what orders will look like when you use a lot size of 1. You will get multiple orders that you have to cancel if you want to. And then the information is still printed here so you can follow what's going on. Now that we're at the bottom of the screen, I'll go ahead and show you, here's the account equity. This is calculated based off of your account numbers. Again, if you have a long and short, they're aggregated. If you specify the same account number, it will not double your account equity, so you don't have to worry about that. The reset app button is here, as well as a version number so that you can make sure you're running the correct version. If you have any support issues, you can contact us and let us know what version you're running. Let me take a few minutes to go through the input list and the rest of the manual just to show you how to reference it and see if there's any concerns. This shows how everything is broken down and gives you a quick reference if you wanted to see what that is affecting. Here is the input settings that I described earlier. They're all defaulted to the appropriate number that makes the most sense and is probably the best place to start when setting up your workspaces. The recommendation is to have one app panel for every symbol. So if you wanted to trade multiple symbols, in my mind you would just keep opening up windows and then changing the inputs. So if you wanted to stack 3 or 4 markets widthwise, you could. And then you can have multiple desktops where you have maybe the commodities on one and your equities on the other, things like that. So it's entirely up to you how you structure it, but the idea is that you would create an instance for every market that you want to trade using the setups to keep things simple, and that keeps all your settings consistent for that market. These diagrams will hopefully spell out any detail, be a quick reference for you so you don't always have to watch the video if you're trying to figure out what's going on. If you have references and you're setting up a gap trade, you can read what each one of these can do. It tries to give you a contextual reference point so that you don't have to always go back to the beginning. It tells you pretty much everything that I've covered, so I'll let you read that if necessary. This is for range settings. This explains in detail what I described about the close market order. Process of executing a range trade. This would be helpful if you're trying to read a message here and then understand what it does. You can look at this and hopefully the message here with a / in front of it, which is syntax for a comment, will give you some information as to why that message appeared, and hopefully be able to help you figure out how to back out from it or resolve it on your own. Wanted to take a few minutes to mention the product. There's going to be a separate video that goes into the details of Intraday Trade Manager Pro. The goal of this is to provide the ability to manage multiple accounts with different objectives and goals all at the same time. So you can define % risk for each of those, and it will honor those settings when you're executing trades so that you don't have to perform a lot of manual entry. Here's the list of the input differences between the two different versions. Here's what the interface looks like. This panel exists to the right of the window. You can still resize and minimize the space that's used when you're not making changes to the different accounts. But I'm not going to go into too much detail at this moment, showing you what it is now. There's a few fields that are also removed. Those are identified here because all of the sizing and risk are accounted for here as opposed to just the one account. This is something you can reference on your own, so I don't want to extend the video too long to talk about these items. Alright, so that is everything. Um, Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us, and we will try to address those within 24 hours. Both of us are active during the day, so we will make every effort to support you, but it may be the evening or after trading hours before we can get back to you, so that we can focus on our primary objective.